Greetings, everyone, to 2024, January 2024. Our topic for this month is integral ecology. And we wanted to take a look at how some of our other countries, including the United States, some of the other countries look at and understand integral ecology in their country. Because integral ecology is that word and that definition came from Laudato Si, when Pope Francis wrote about our common home. So today, our guest speaker comes to us from Nigeria, and we're hoping for a really good connection the whole time. So Sister Salem has a background in agriculture management, and will be studying, as a matter of fact, for her graduate degree in the United States come July and August of 24. So Sister Salem has some background in this, so we invited her to share with us today a bit about how Laudato Si is understood, how integral ecology is understood in her country by her country and also by the sisters in the region. How do they implement the practices, the action plan from Laudato Si? So Sister Salem, welcome. We're so glad that you're here.
Thank you so much, Sister Michelle. Thank you so much. I'm grateful for this opportunity to come share the little from my wealth of knowledge, little that I think I could. And with the grace of God, He will lead us forth to really take into action Laudato Si, because we really need this action, we need this concept of integral ecology. So may I share my screen with you?
Absolutely. We would love that. She's going to share her screen and make her presentation. I'll let you know when I can see your screen. Aha. Okay. And there we go. It's in presentation mode. That means if I can see it, everybody can see it. So go ahead, Sister Salem.
All right. Thank you, Sister. So good afternoon, morning, evening, everyone. We are going to be talking about integral ecology as it relates to Laudato Si, specifically in my country, Nigeria, and as a region of PHJC. So I'm going to look at the content and what we'll be talking about briefly this afternoon. In Nigeria now is past 2 p.m. So we'll be looking at a brief background of the concept, though Sister Michelle has already said something about it. And then we'll be looking at the meaning of integral ecology briefly. We'll be looking at mainly Laudato Si actions in Nigeria. How do Nigerians see it? How are they practicing this action? And then we're also going to be looking at signs of our time as relates to Laudato Si, reasons we have to really put into action Laudato Si activities, and then we will conclude.
Good.
Yeah, so briefly, it's Sister Michelle already said it, and I don't think this action is new to us, because in the August 2015, specifically 28th of August, the Holy Father called each and every one of us into an integral ecology, which is all about holistic connection between humans and the environment. And when we talk about holistic connection between humans and the environment, we are not far from our interconnectedness and interdependence among ourselves and among the organisms, the environment where we live. We cannot talk about this without looking at integral and ecology. What does integral mean? What does ecology mean? And then how both are intertwined. when you say something is integral, you are saying that this is something that is necessary. It's like a core in something, is a core in somebody's life. It's something that is fundamental, is essential, and is functional. And for me, when something is functional and fundamental, it means that thing is an essence that other things could derive their living from. And so, looking at Laudato Si actions, we see that ecology and integral are connected, in the sense that integral has to do with the essence. Ecology is a biological science, a branch of biology that deals with the interaction between the organisms and the physical environment. And so if you bring in what is needed as the essence or the fundamental, the necessity, and then the interaction of the environment together, we see that every one of us as human beings need each other. We need to support each other. We need each other to live, to survive. And that is why we need to connect to each other. And then we need to also depend on each other. As humans, we depend on ourselves, we depend on the organisms, we depend on the environment. And then the organisms and the environment where we live depends on us for their survival. Now, what is integral ecology? It's no other thing than connection between humans and the environment. The focus here about interconnectedness and the interdependence is no other thing than reorienting ourselves so as we can inspire and choose our lives, different values of life, to live different values that will enhance a more sustainable, just way, as PHJCs, as lay faithfuls, as individuals and groups in our different perspectives. Now let's look at Laudato Si actions in Nigeria. When we want to talk about Laudato Si actions in Nigeria, we are going to be talking about how Nigerians look at the concept. How are they putting it into practice? And Nigerians really practicing it? Are the PHJCs in Nigeria really putting this into action? That's the question we need to answer in a couple of minutes. And then after that, we'll be looking at reasons why we need to move into action this activity, because there are signs of times that we're already experiencing. How do Nigerians look at the concept? How are they practicing it? I'm going to be talking about this, discussing responses from two groups. The first group is going to be the general public. And when I say the general public in Nigeria, I'm talking about no other group than the government officials, the politicians, those in the higher offices, and then the other citizens in the country. And the second group of people we are going to look at their responses is going to be the church in Nigeria. And when I talk about the church in Nigeria, I mean the Catholic Bishops' Conference of Nigeria, the priests, the religious congregations in Nigeria where we as poor handmaids belong, and then the laity, which is the entire church. Responding to the general public, I will just mention 2 points and then try to briefly talk about them. The 2 main points are, one of it is technological activities, and the other one is the issue of global economy. What I mean by technological activities, I I'm talking about no other thing, but the fact that media has become the order of the day in my country, Nigeria. And there is a high level of laxity and negligence to the activities of the environment than the media. People are more interested in technology. They fan into flame what do you call it? Electrical gadgets, heavy duty engines, chemicals here and there. There's a lot of explosion in the air. There's a lot of engines running here and there in the country. And so this has closed the minds of individuals that no one cares about what is happening. Even if people are told about, let's say there is a kind of fire outbreak somewhere, and that has to do with burning of oil and gas and so on. A lot doesn't care about it, simply because they are more interested in themselves. What we see today in the country is about I relationship. It is me, it is I and my family. And so people run technology, and that has to give them what they want and has nothing to do with the other persons. And there is nothing like I-thou relationship. In the past, we experienced I-thou relationship. People care for each other. People are concerned about themselves. But today, no one cares. There is no longer a heart for others. And that's why, for me, I see it that a lot have been engulfed in what we call technology than the created things that God endowed us with. And hence the need for Laudato Si actions in my country. And then the second response from the general public, it's about the issue of global economy. And this has to do with environmental global poverty. In my country, from experience, right from childhood, I have seen that a few live extravagantly. And that's why I separated the responses of the higher official members, the government officials, the politicians from the church. There are two different groups of persons in the country. They live extravagantly, and the millions live in abject poverty. The poor ones are the ones experiencing the impact and the effect of this climate change that we all have brought into ourselves. Both the rich and the poor contributed to this because of their activities. But then what we see is that because the poor doesn't have the money to survive, even in the midst of this climate change and all that, the rich are surviving and thriving well in the country. There is so much negligence about the poor in the country, the vulnerable, the marginalized. And then on daily basis, what we see is endangered species. And these endangered species are not caused by any other persons. They are being caused by the rich ones. They send the poor into the forest to endanger different kinds of species, to deforest the trees, the vegetation that God has endowed us with. Now, let's take, for instance, I come from Boki local government in Cross River State, Nigeria. In my area, we are blessed with natural forests. I mean, wildlife, game reserve, everything is in my area. But on daily basis, people go into the forest to endanger these species that should, give us life. It created things that God gave to us that we should care for. And we see on daily basis, people set bushes on fire, and then a lot of activities are going on that are not normal. Meanwhile, we have agencies that are meant to care for this surrounding environment. We have the forestry units, we have the wildlife, and so on. But none are interested. corruption is on a high side, has taken over them. And so what we see is, even if you as an individual find out somebody felling down trees or trying to kill animals from the surrounding environment, and you go reporting to the forestry unit or the wildlife, they'll just follow you there. And once they are given a token, that's what they want. Everything will just be like nothing is happening, and the case will just be closed. So on daily basis, as personally, I don't find it funny when I stay in the environment and see people just setting bushes on fire around, even around the convents, my community where we are. So we always pray that there shouldn't be any fire outbreak, because as people set fire on the bushes around us, it can easily penetrate into the compound, and it can affect us as individuals and destroy properties. So there is a lot about the responses of the general public. So having said this, I'm just trying to give a picture of what it is here and how I feel, because this call from the Holy Father is what every should take as the essence. And for me, I believe that as we keep propagating and desensitizing people, with time, something positive will come out of it. So having talked about the responses from the general public, let's look at the church in Nigeria. The church in Nigeria, like I said earlier, is comprising of the Catholic Bishops' Conference, the priests, the religious congregations, religious, I mean religious men and women, and then the laity. We cannot talk about the church in Nigeria without talking about Caritas Nigeria, the outreach of the church to those in need. A brief history of this foundation is a Catholic Caritas Foundation of Nigeria. You can see the logo there. Caritas Nigeria is a group founded by the Bishops' Conference of Nigeria in 2010, and mainly coordinating development and humanitarian interventions. And what does Caritas mean? Caritas means love or charity for all. And so the church in Nigeria feels through this means they can sensitize the public and bring them into the Laudato Si action. What are the thematic areas? We have one of it as good governance. We have humanitarian services. Health is the key in Nigeria, the Nigerian church. We have agriculture and livelihoods, where we are talking about protecting the earth, caring for our mother earth and the created things by God. And then anti-human trafficking is the order of the day in my country, Nigeria. And so the church in Nigeria is trying to see how they can really cope that act. And then there's a group called the ICS. ICS stands for Institutional Development and Capacity Strengthening. From my screen, you can see they are geared towards ensuring that the network of the church partners have the highest, to deliver high quality development interventions. And so donors are everywhere. This action kicked off in 2014, and it was founded by a sister organization called the Catholic Relief Services. On daily basis, palliatives are being given to the church. There's an outreach of health services and so on, which we'll be seeing from the pictures. But before we go into that, let's look at the logos trying to, portray the thematic areas the church in Nigeria carries out. The number one you are seeing is It's carrying a heart, a large heart. You can see the sign of the cross, and then two hands close to the heart. That sign is for health and the HIV. It's trying to show that the church holds those that are not really healthy in a high esteem. The church in Nigeria draws them closer to ourselves and to God, and see how we can really foster good health in any means we can. And the second logo is, we see a green. Green is chlorophyll. It's a sign of happiness, I would say, during spring, when fresh greens are sprouting up. Everyone is happy that there will be a greater yield and harvest during planting season and harvesting. So we see a green plant growing and a soil under. That depicts agriculture and livelihood, protecting the earth. And then the next logo we are looking at is good governance. There's always a member of the church trying to foster good governance, trying to sensitize the people on what is right. Vote wisely, vote rightly, not just because you are given a token to put somebody in an office, a political office, no, but because this person is the rightful person for that post, and that person is going to carry everyone at heart to do the needful in the country when the person is voted into that office. Then the next logo, the fourth logo we are seeing, we see a hand and individuals. That is humanitarian services, where we carry everyone in our hands. The church in Nigeria carries everyone in our hands, and see how we reach out to them. The poor, we have groups that go into the grassroots, to the villages and everywhere, to really find out who is in need, to their doorsteps, and see what we can do to that. And then we can see a hand folded and chains all over. That is a symbol of those that have been trafficked, some even in the country, some outside the country. And very soon you'll be seeing a lady who was trafficked to Europe, and Caritas Nigeria was able to restore her and bring her back. You will see that. So, and then the last logo is about sensitization, the ICS I'm talking about, trying to make sure that partners of the church are being given the highest interventions ever through carrying out projects, reaching out to them, teaching them on what is the essence about Laudato Si. Yes, we talked about agriculture and livelihoods. This picture is trying to show us the environmental management and the Laudato Si, how the church is trying to teach people to put into practice. You see them trying to recycle plastic containers instead of loitering them or setting them on fire. Yeah, we are in solidarity with the afflicted, the vulnerable, and the handicapped in our midst. We can see young men and women working closely with those suffering from HIV/AIDS and the different diseases. So they are always there to sensitize. These people are not to live in isolation. They are brothers and sisters, and so it could happen to it could happen to you. So the church in Nigeria sees that circumstances put some of these victims into the situation where they are. And so we cannot just leave them. So you see the legs, the youths raised up, a kind of let's move to fight HIV/AIDS in the country and other sicknesses. Yeah, I talked about the logo of human trafficking is on a high side, I mean to the extreme. In villages, people come from cities to deceive the parents of some little children of secondary school, 15 years or thereabout, and say, I want your child, I want to train your child where I am in the city. And the ignorance would lead the parents into releasing these children out. And when these persons take these children out, what they do with them is either sex as trade or slavery, or become sales boys and girls. And it's also happening even outside. Some come to deceive young women and men that if I take you abroad, to Europe, to America, to Asia, I will give you a job. And you, because the background of these young men and women, like I said earlier, few are living extravagantly, and many millions are living in abject poverty. So when you are in poverty, anybody can come and say, I offer you this. For those that don't really understand what it is about life, and they will be happy. And so this young lady we see here having a sewing machine was taken, trafficked to Europe, all the way from Nigeria. And she suffered a lot until, because Caritas Nigeria is a global organization working hand in hand with other global agencies to fight these atrocities in the country and in the world. They were able, the agents, they were able to connect the agents in Nigeria, and they were able to help free, I would say, set free this young lady. So if you look at her, what she captioned is hope lost, restored hope that was lost. She was trafficked to Europe, and the Caritas Nigeria helped to bring her back. And today, she is doing well, and she's grateful to God. And each time she talks about, she celebrates the blessings and the grace of God in her life through Caritas Nigeria. Yeah, still on health. We see men and women reversing malnutrition. There is a lot. When young ladies get pregnant without marriage, and then what they get is they find themselves in a situation where they cannot take care of themselves, even from the pregnancy period, and then to delivery, and then raising a newborn to a certain stage is difficult. And so the church cannot just close her eyes to this. The church is a mother. So what we do in the church in Nigeria is trying to focus on lactating mothers and children under 5 years, and then try to see how we can bring them back by giving them good nutrition, administering good treatment to these victims. Good governance. We cannot talk about Caritas Nigeria without good governance. I would say the general election of last year was highly influenced by the church in Nigeria. The media was everywhere watching and following up what was happening in the country. And this went a long way to help the results at the end of time. Still on good governance, we see a group of men and women, celebrating what we call PVC. And their slogan is always, your vote must count, raising their PVC up. The PVC means permanent voters card. And so the church sensitizes every member of the church and the public on the need to obtain your PVC, because PVC is a criteria to cast your vote in Nigeria. So if you don't have the permanent voters card, you are not allowed to vote. And you know, one vote can send in one who is not a round peg in a round hole. So there is need to sensitize the public on getting and obtaining your PVC and then going out to vote, because we need people with Christ's minds into these offices. Because when you look at the two responses I've been talking about, you could see the dichotomy between the general public and the church. So if we continue to fold our hands in the country and watch those, the bourgeoisies, I call them, taking up offices in the country, and the church will always say politics is a dirty game, we cannot go into it. They will continue to close their eyes towards integral ecology. And that is why last year the church moved into action and said, we, the church in Nigeria, are out to partake in this politics. You could see the logo written on the tops of the people there. It's written there boldly, Laudato Si. We are talking about interconnectedness and interdependence. We can see a picture, a sign of close relationship under the inscription. It's showing that we as humans are interconnected and must be interdependent on ourselves and on the environment where we live. Hence, the need to protect and care for the Mother Earth. Still a kind of sensitization. The church is sensitizing the public on the needs for Laudato Si. You see them presenting a magazine, newspapers, and so on, going from house to house to talk about it in streets, in motor parks, and so on. We also fight violence. We promote peace. We can see two hands: say no to rape, say no to all forms of violence. So that is one of what Caritas Nigeria do. And then this was the summit. This was the 7th summit in Nigeria, trying to talk to the church on the need for Laudato Si. And it took place, in Abuja, the FCT, Federal Capital Territory. And there is no way the entire church in Nigeria will be able to gather in Abuja. So what we do is the dioceses, the parishes will send delegates to represent each church. And then at the end of the summit, the delegates will return back to the church and then give a report by also sensitizing the other members of the church. And not just by a theoretical report, you see them putting it into action. Project activities are also being carried out. This is a classroom. It's not just going from house to house or villages or the motor parks and so on. Even in classrooms, they gather women, children, youth to talk about the project of Laudato Si. You could see that here. And so we've been talking about the church in Nigeria in general. Now, as 4 handmaids of Jesus Christ in Nigeria, what are we doing to this call? What we are doing as a region with regard to protecting the earth? We are doing a lot of things, but I will just mention 3. The first is we have seen that we cannot survive without the Mother Earth as a region. And so we moved into farming activities. We cultivate the soil and grow healthy foods for our consumption. And it helps a lot because these days in the markets, what you see is inorganic food here and there. So when we cultivate, a few things we buy from the market and what we produce ourselves keeps us more healthier when we consume. Then we also recycle and decompose natural waste materials in pits. We recycle them and then we make use of them as compost manure for crop growth. When we put them in pits, they decompose, and then when they are ready as compost manures, we now apply to the crops we plant. Instead of going into the market to purchase chemicals in the name of fertilizer or plant boosters, we make use of our natural materials. And then we drink natural water from our borehole running through the tap. Yeah. Instead of buying canned waters, bottled waters, and loiter the places, because we don't have recycling companies or industries here. So better for us, what we do is we have boreholes. Because we are sure of our environments where our communities are, we make use of our natural drinking water. Now you could see this, what I just explained. Sisters making use of what we have, the environment, the lands we have to cultivate. You see in the different sections, we plant sometimes maize, granules, beans, cassava yams, and so on. And during farming season, we harvest. When it comes to cassava, we cultivate, we harvest during harvest season, we peel, we grind, and so we now fry. And we could use this as gari to sip. We could use this as fufu, as swallow. We could use this as a normal a meal. We call it abacha in Igbo. So there are a lot of things we do here, and it's so helpful for cultivate vegetables. Instead of going to the market to buy vegetables, we have a lot. Even in the school where I am, I made a vegetable garden, and it was so helpful to the convent. Each time a sister is in kitchen weekly, I just say the vegetables are ready, they come in, they harvest, and so on. And there are a lot of fruits that I'm preparing and planning to cultivate this season. Farming season is by the corner. So that is what we do as a region. And for me, it's been so helpful. We have palm nuts where we harvest palm oil, we process, and then we make use of it. We get what is it called? Firewood from the trees around. Instead of just wasting and cutting them down, we make use of them, and it's been helpful for us as a region. So let's look at the signs of our time. I haven't said all these stories we've been talking about, Laudato Si actions in Nigeria, by the general public and by the church in Nigeria, and even as a region. There are signs. We have been seeing them. We are suffering. There is no doubt. And one of these signs is pollution and climate change. It's everywhere. During rainy season, there's a lot of flood affecting us as a country. There are times people cannot travel through some major routes, federal routes for that matter. Maybe going from, let's say, from the east to the north. When you get to Lokoja, Kogi State, you are stopped up. The river there covers everywhere. It can even take away houses, and human beings are affected. And there is no way to travel to the other states. So it's a sign of the time, which is for us, it's supposed to be what will really move us into protecting the Mother Earth. Then the issue of water. Water is a basic necessity. There's pollution everywhere. how do people get clean water? And that is why a lot have taken into canned water, bottled water. Some have to treat water before they drink and so on. So it's a sign of time to me as an individual. Then endangering species, I mentioned it earlier, and I gave an example of the area where I come from and how organisms, the forest and so on have been destroyed on daily basis. Decline in quality of human life. And this decline in quality of human life has led to breakdown of society and a change in global economy. So we need to do something. And having said this, the Holy Father himself, before he was moved into this action, saw a lot. And he identified one of the strongest signs of our time, and that is weak responses and indifference towards Laudato Si action, and which has to do with negligence of the poor around us, responding to the needs of the vulnerable and the effect of climate change and pollution in the environment. These are all the signs of time. We don't care for each other. There's no heart for others again. What I see, like I said earlier, is the I relationship. There is nothing like I, thou, or thou, I relationship. So we need to look at this as individuals, as groups, as religious sisters, women, as poor handmaids in quotes, very important. I will conclude integral ecology in line with Laudato Si, with what the Holy Father said. He said, we cannot adequately combat degradation unless we attend to the causes related to human and social degradation. And for the fact that all these are happening, the rich are getting richer, they are enjoying technology, they are not feeling the impacts of the effect of this climate change and pollution and what have you. We still need, though we see that there are people that have embraced love for humanity and nature, but then majority still shows indifferent attitudes. You can see some saying, I don't care, I don't know, and so on. They are not interested. We need to really take into cognizance these signs of our time and then put into action Laudato Si. I will have to end here. Thanks for listening and for joining in the Laudato Si action towards protecting and caring for the earth and the poor by making judicious use of the Mother Earth. God bless you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. If you stop sharing, that would be great. And Sister Salem, way to go.
Yes, yes, sister.
You gave us a good look into Nigeria and how Nigeria uses, understands, and has implemented Laudato Si. And so I'll tell you what, would you stop sharing for a minute so we can see you again? I know we see you, but very small at this point.
All right.
So if you stop then. Yeah, there we go. Yes. So thank you. Thank you so much. It's always good for us to look outside of ourselves in our own home and our own specific place to a broader understanding of what integral ecology means in other countries and the issues that you have and in your country, and also the action plan that you have implemented. So thank you so much. We really appreciate it. And thank you for your time in preparing this and presenting it. We look forward to you being here in the near future. Okay.
Thank you, sister.
All right.
Thank you so much. Yeah.
All right. Take care. Here we go. I hit something, I guess. All right. This ends our recording for today.